It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show!
Hey there, everybody. It's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name's Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey, gang.
Les Webster.
Hello, all.
And Liz Newman.
Hello, everybody.
How are you guys doing?
Great.
Wow, that was believable.
Right?
You've been practicing that all afternoon, haven't you?
That movie, acting.
Acting.
And
Science.
Cut, print, that's a wrap, folks.
All right, we're out of here.
Hope everybody out there is doing okay. So what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
Oh, man.
No.
I don't know if you guys heard like a really sharp screech on Saturday, but that was me. We finished Rings of Power.
Ooh.
Have you finished that yet, Mikey?
I have one more episode to go.
Oh, man. The last 10 minutes, you'll be going, what the fuck? What the fuck? I won't spoil it for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was not happy with that at all. There was a few things that were kind of like, what? Did you see that too? So they've definitely set up a good third season. Yeah, they've definitely set up a good third season. I'm kind of curious because some of the things that I thought would happen, they've already played their hand and it's happened. So it's kind of like, where do we go from here? So we shall see. Yeah. Crazy.
Well, you've piqued my interest anyway.
Yeah. Like I said, I at one part I had to look up because it's like maybe I'm wrong because it sounds like it's right, but it doesn't sound right. It's really, but it's like maybe. So I looked it up and it's like, no, you're not crazy. That was never said.
Oh, okay.
It's never happened before, so it's like, okay. But yeah, once you see it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
I'm sure I will.
And if not, she'll call you and tell you.
If not, I'll hear all about it next week.
Yeah. It'll be like, you didn't think that was stupid too? But yeah, like I said, like Mikey has pointed out before, if you completely take this out of the Tolkien world and this is just a Middle-earth story that they're telling, cool. It's pretty good, I think this season definitely flowed a lot better than the first season did. I know they had a lot to set up because they were okayed for 7 seasons of this or whatever it was.
That's ridiculous, whatever it is. Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. So I kind of figured the first season would be slow because they set up 4 different storylines that are going on, which sometimes that gets irky. Especially when you get so wrapped up in one story, and then they're like, "Oh, but wait, let's check on the Harfoots." I think is what they're calling them.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, but I want to go back and see the dwarves. So
right. Yeah. See, your problem is you have a favorite. That's your problem.
I do. I have really, really enjoyed the elf story. The dwarf story. I forget what his name is in that though. Durin. I like the friendship that Elrond and Durin have. one that has definitely standed the test of time, just with what they've laid down. And, we definitely see that again in the second season. It just kind of strengthens what you already know. Even when they were banned from seeing each other, they still saw each other. Kingdoms be damned. We're friends. This is the way this works. So I have so enjoyed that story. I kind of wish that was kind of what the story was. Because some of the other stuff that they've put out, it's just kind of like, okay, but this hasn't happened, so he shouldn't be here, and this hasn't happened, so this shouldn't be, So,
and I mean, I think part of the whole point of this show is to drive people crazy with stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so in that regard, they're doing their job, but it's also the problem is they're not driving fans crazy in a good way.
Mm-mm.
Because they're getting off of where things should be. And
just timeline that's been placed down. Even, if you don't know the full story, there's still a timeline that's been laid down. If you've just watched the movies, there's a timeline that they talk about that's been laid down, so it's kind of like, okay, this is how it was. And now Amazon comes along and goes, no, wait, it's not ABC, it's B, C, D, A, it's a little all over the place to where sometimes it just doesn't make sense the way that it happened. It's like this shouldn't have happened if this didn't happen, but this hasn't happened yet. So, yeah. But it like I said, if you take it out of the Tolkien world, it's a great story, Yeah, I mean, I'll give them that much. I think the actors that they have definitely put everything they have into it. They seem to be a little bit more relaxed in the second season. And you know what? Even if I was going word for word by a Tolkien book, I would be scared as hell to be in anything Tolkien. You have fans who know that they know this stuff, and you never want to offend those. And people are like, well, they want a broader audience. Why? This has sold millions and has captured people who they never thought would. What other audience do you want? Well, do you want the audience who's now complaining because your dwarf is black, or do you want the audience who's complaining about a lead female? This is the new audience you wanted to attract, right? So I think sometimes the best thing you can do rating-wise is play to your fans. They're the ones who have kept you relevant and comfortable, for 100 years, stick with that. They're not going to do you wrong. You do them right, and they're not going to do you wrong. So, but that's my 2 cents on that one. I've said that even about comic book movies. I think if you play to your fans, you never go wrong. You have a dedicated base where you're going to make money. Stick with it. Make your money. Some of these people act like they hate money.
just for chuckles, the counter argument to this is that even if you've got people who are hate watching your stuff, they're paying to hate watch your stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
So you don't have to pander to a very specific group. You can spread out how you're pandering and get hate watched by a whole lot of people and make a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And I'm saying this somewhat sarcastically, I admit.
Right.
But
if you pander to your fans, though, okay, we'll use Batman as an example here. Okay, you play to your fans. Every fan is going to go see that movie. And if you play to not your fans, those people will go see your movie and they'll maybe see it once. You play to your fans, that fan's going to go watch your movie 2, 3, 4, 5 million times, So it's kind of like, do you want the one-off guy over here who's only going to watch it once and, yeah, I saw it, it was good, Or do you want the fanatic over here who's like, Batman! And he's there every day watching the movie, That's the guy I want. because this guy over here, I'm only getting his money once. This guy over here, I'm getting his money like 5, 6, 7, Juan across the street went and saw Spider-Man, 12 times? They got his money from him 12 times because he was a fan. Me, I'm not a fan. I watched it once, So to me, you would definitely want to play to that fan instead of a maybe. Maybe they like it. Maybe they'll tell people to go see it too. Maybe,
Yeah, but if you jiggle the story just a little bit, you can get both.
Maybe.
Well, that's the gamble anyway.
Yeah.
That's what they're trying for.
I
And whether they get it or not, I mean, it's not 100% success every time, but
Yeah. But your average moviegoer usually only goes and sees the movie once. And then they'll wait for it to get to home and, either they'll rent it or, rent it like we're back in those days, or, they'll wait and stream it or pay-per-view or whatever, but most of the time an average fan won't go a lot of times to the movie. It's like a one shot. I got the experience of the movie theater. Now I'll wait for it to come home if I want to see it again, To where, like I said, your fanatic is going to be like, I don't care where it is. Let me go watch it.
Yeah, but the ratio of fanatics to the one-off people is not nearly as high as it's a lot higher than you think it is.
Maybe.
There are a lot more one-off people out there. They wouldn't be able to make billions of dollars on these movies if they wasn't.
Right. Now, on normal movies, yes. On comic book movies, no. You're not dealing with movie fans. You're not dealing with just movie fans there. You're also dealing with a fan base that Batman's been around for, 85 years? You're dealing with a fan base that's been around for 85 years.
Yeah, and you're talking about movie people who don't know this and did not know this at all in 2009 when they started. And
right.
They've still not quite figured it out because because running it like a movie business is working. They're making a shit ton of money. And so they don't need to learn the nuances, and they're not going to.
Right. But you need to know your fan base.
No, you don't. That's my point.
Well,
they absolutely do not need to know their fan base.
And that's the problem now. Look at the last Star Wars that they put out. They didn't know their fan base. It did not set very well with any of the Star Wars fans.
And they still made money.
Maybe. I don't know if they broke even on that.
They didn't make the money that they thought they were going to make, but they did make money.
Okay. But yeah, and that's just one of the things with when you step out of a fan base to be like, hey, let's capture this audience over here, and you totally fuck off your fan base. What are you doing?
Yeah, well, be careful.
What are you doing?
In your quest to get the multi-billion-dollar organization to make a movie just for you, because that's not going to happen. You're going to have to find that on your own.
No, but they do it all the time. Look at Frozen. Look at Moana. Look at Little Mermaid. You think they're making that for 30-year-old men? No, they're making that for the fan base, which is usually between the ages of 5 and 12.
That's not a fan base. So, that's a demographic. That's different.
Well, yeah, it's some. I know, like
comic book fan is not a demographic.
Yes, but if Batman wasn't selling and had a large fan base, Batman wouldn't have 14 titles right now. They're making money off Batman, and they're not making it off of one-off moviegoers. They're making it off the fan base.
Different business. Different business.
When you put that,
and honestly, I doubt that they're really that good at it. But anyway,
it's not your comic moviegoer that's seeing it. It's your fan base.
And it's different people doing that. The comic book guys are not making the movie. The movie people are making the movie.
Right. But it's not going
different
to the average. It
demographic.
Should be to the fan base, not to, why not appease the
There is no way in hell. The millions of people, as opposed to the 50 or 60,000 people who buy the Batman comics. Yeah, they're going to go for the millions of people every single time. That's the business.
Mm-hmm.
because that's where the money is.
Yeah. I just think if people didn't know.
You're talking about an order of magnitude of difference.
Yeah.
So the guy across the street is going to have to go see it at least 1,000 times to make up the difference. And every single Spider-Man fan is also going to have to go see it 1,000 times to make up the difference. It's all a question of scale.
Not necessarily, though. Because if you made a movie that appealed to your fan base, you're still appeasing that one-off person.
But you're not going to spend $200 million making a movie for 60,000 people.
But you're not making it for 60,000.
That's your fan base.
You're making it for 60,000 people that you know would have. Matt Reeves right now with the Batman. He's a fan. He was a fan. He knows the source material.
And
he knows Batman backwards and forth. That's who he's making the movie for. If this guy across the street has never watched Batman and he still wants to come watch this, hey, great. He'll probably enjoy it because it's a good movie.
You feel free to believe that he's making that like that, and that's fine. Go right ahead and believe that.
You can watch the movie until he's making it for the fans. All the Easter eggs that are put through there, your average moviegoer's not going to know that at all. They're not. So why did you put it in the movie? To appease your fan base. Because you know this is your fan base that you're trying to make happy because they're the major source of your money for this movie.
No, they are in no way the major source of your money for this movie. No way at all.
I don't know.
Not unless they're, like I said, not unless they're paying $10,000 a head to watch the movie. There is no way. You are talking about millions of people rather than this fan base that you're talking about, which I'm not sure why you think there's that many zeros in the number of fans, because there's not. If there were, we wouldn't have been talking about the comic book industry dying for the last 40 years.
But your fan base is also part of that general audience. So it's not just the fan base. So it's not just 60,000 people. There's also people who watch comic book movies, who love comic book movies, who's never touched a comic book. And they still know that this is the way things are supposed to go.
Yeah.
You know,
and
you
that's
change
still a
that
small
up,
enough percentage that that's not who they're going to make the films for.
and they wind up bombing.
Except that they don't.
But they do.
Very many.
Look at Eternals. Look at Shazam.
Eternals was
look
a
at
choice.
Black Adam.
That Eternals
you don't
was a
think
different.
Fans went and watched that? They did. All their fans did. But it was such a crappy movie that your one-off that you were trying to get, you know, they didn't come watch it. Your fan base, who you should rely on, the base of your money there, they were kind of like, I don't want to watch this crap. So you pissed off your fan base too. So now not even your fan base is coming to watch this crap. And now you just got a crappy movie out there. So at some point you're going to have to go, we need to appease to the people who's going to like this, who we know is going to like this, and not take a chance on maybe they'll like it, you know. Is what I'm saying. Know the people who you're making the movie for. Nowadays, it seems like they don't know. They're like, well, we want to catch the hip young crowd. The hip young crowd don't give a fuck about your movie. You know, why not go ahead and do the old crowd? You know, that give a fuck about your movie. You know. So it's irky, very very irky.
Oh, there's something irky here. All right.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Hi, Liz.
You're missing the point, though. So
Am I?
You are.
I don't think I'm the one who's missing the point.
Well, you're twisting my point.
I'm trying to make your point make sense, and I'm failing.
No, you've made my point fail, is what you've done. What I'm saying is when you make something, you should make it to the people who know it, not to the people who you think might know it. That's too big of a shot. Right. And that's the reason why DC's having a hard time getting out of the gate here lately. They're not making it to the people who know the stuff. They're making it for this crowd who maybe go see it once and they won't even talk about it again. You know, that's who they're making movies for nowadays, to where your fan base doesn't want to see a movie like that. They don't want to see you make a mockery of their heroes for these one-off people that will never go and watch your shit again. They will never support you outside of a movie by going and buying your books. Nothing. So why ass-kiss these people when they're not your bread and butter? They're not your everyday dollar. They're your once a movie comes out and that's it. That's it. Well, what about when you don't have a movie in the theaters? What are you going to do then? How are you going to pay your people?
Okay.
So.
Your juju fees?
Hey, they like that, but.
Right. It's watered down Coke and popcorn, which is where all the money comes from. Hell.
Right.
Oh, God, I got a headache. Hi, Les.
Yep. I'm done.
So, Mike,
Uh-huh.
how about you?
Oh, you don't think I've stirred up enough shit already here? Come on, man. As threatened, I don't really have a whole lot this week. I mean, yeah, as Liz likes to put it, I managed to have a life for a little bit this weekend, but that actually wasn't. I mean, it was fun for us, but it wouldn't really bear much in the telling of a story or anything. Otherwise, yeah, I've got one more episode of Rings of Power to go, and I've also been. I mean, and I'm only kind of bringing this up now because I keep saying I'm not finishing anything, and I haven't finished it yet. But the other thing I am watching, and I can't remember how many episodes there are now, so I'm at least partway into it, is something Les mentioned a little ways back. He talked about the Cultastic series, which is basically a documentary series where Roger and Julie Corman are talking about their movies that they've done over the years, kind of little inside peeks to certain movies, and the episodes are broken up by genre, which is kind of fun. So I am kind of enjoying the hell out of that at the moment, but I'm not done yet. So that's why I keep not finishing what I'm doing, is because I've been doing two things essentially that are kind of taking a long time because there are a lot of hours involved.
Okay. Les?
Mike, I'm glad to hear that you're watching that. I thought it was really good stuff, and it made me pull out a pencil and paper and start taking notes as to what I wanted to watch, because some of those are just hysterically bad.
That's the fun thing, is that they're talking about these movies like they're a labor of love, and I'm sure they were, but you also know that some of them are going to be good and some of them are really not, and it might be fun to try to catch some of them in the hopes that they are really terrible, which is entertaining in its own way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've got a couple written down too.
Which reminds me, last night I found that Battle Beyond the Stars is on YouTube for free with ads.
Oh wow!
I've got it bookmarked, so I'll send it to y'all. We can put it in show notes.
Cool.
Too.
I wouldn't mind seeing that.
I saw it when it came out 100 years ago, and I just haven't seen it since then. So, yeah, I'm kind of interested in checking it out again. So. I'm sorry, Les. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No. I'd kind of like to see Damnation. Was it Damnation Alley? Just for the fun.
Yeah.
That was George Papard. And it's one of the first movies I took my wife to see, and she just rolled her head and said, "What the hell is this?"
The first of many.
True. Yeah, that's true. I want to know, as far as the series that you're watching is. This character that you talked about, Duran.
Mm-hmm. That was Rings of Power.
Does he have a twin brother?
I'm not sure.
Not so far.
They've mentioned him, but I've never seen his brother.
Because I was just wondering if it was Duran.
Oh, wow.
I was going to say that my maternal grandparents had a heart doctor named Duran, Dr. Duran. So, bumps.
But that's about all I got.
Okay. Well, for me, a couple things. I'm still doing the whole body cam thing. But before I get into that, I do want to mention this. I picked up the first in the line of the DC Finest collections. And this is essentially like their equivalent of Marvel's Epic collections.
Mm-hmm.
And the one I picked up was Batman Year 1 and 2, which collects Batman issues 401 through 412 and Annual 11, and Detective Comics 568 to 579. So,
Where did you find this?
huh?
Where did you find it?
I got it on Amazon.
Oh, okay.
So, the thing I'm really pleased about, first of all, I'm glad that they're doing these, because if y'all are a long-time listener, you know that I'm a big fan of the Epic collections that Marvel's been putting out. So I'm glad that DC's finally doing something similar. But from some of the stuff that they've listed is going to be coming out, I'm really pleased because they are actually going back to some of the Golden Age stuff. They're like next summer, they're releasing one on the Justice Society, which collects the very first issues of their stories back in the 40s. The most recent solicits, they're showing that they're doing Plastic Man, the early 40s stuff. So they're actually doing some of the Golden Age stuff, which is an area they've been neglectful on. You know, unless it's the big three. You know, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. They've been doing the Golden Age stuff in collections and omnibuses and all that, but that's been about it. I mean, the only other thing was Green Arrow they did a Green Arrow Golden Age omnibus, which surprised the hell out of me, as I didn't know they did that. Of course, I picked it up because I was like, I've never read any of those stories. So I'm glad they're doing at least this, so some of the stuff can actually be collected. I hope they continue that, because from some of the stuff that's been listed, they're going through the entire gamut: Golden Age, Silver Age, Bronze, Current. So I'm glad they're doing that.
Sounds cool.
Yeah. Well, because I've been really wanting to read some of that stuff, but how can I do it other than signing up for the online thing? And like, I don't want to spend that kind of money for stuff that I don't actually have. I don't have possession of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something we've talked about several times in the past. Like I said, I've been kind of continuing the body cam stuff on YouTube. It's. I hope y'all had a chance to watch the one I talked about last week, because that was so funny. But there was a couple of good ones that I saw this week. There was one where they really didn't go into much details of what happened, but apparently it was a couple who attacked a couple of guests, and this is at a resort. And the dude is the quote-unquote executive chef. But when you see him, you're like, he doesn't really look like a chef, but okay. So they get arrested, but the guys don't want to press charges, so they get them for disorderly intox, and this is like in Florida, I believe it was. So they don't have to have someone press charges; they can just be taken in for that. But the thing I'm bringing this one up is the guy is an asshole. Of course, both of them are high or drunk or whatever. But he gets arrested, and he starts and the deputy starts trying to read the Miranda rights, and of course he decides being a smart ass and start talking over him. He's like, okay, the deputy says, okay, well, this conversation's over, stops, and proceeds to ignore him the entire way. Has to take him to the hospital first to get checked out, and then take him to jail. But the entire ride is the guy in the back asking questions and like, talk to me, and he's not talking to him. So, I mean, at one point the deputy goes, okay, you want to talk about this? Let me start reading your rights. And he's like, I know my rights. No. Oh, okay, you're going to be an asshole, so I'm stopping. And the deputy who took the female didn't even get that far. He just didn't talk to her at all. She didn't know exactly what she was being arrested for. But it's funny because we're going back and forth to each cars, and they're panicking because nobody's talking to them. Just they won't shut up. So it was funny kind of watching that. I was like, you know what, y'all guys deserve it. What was another one I saw? I don't know if I mentioned this one before, but there was the incident of, I don't remember where this was too, but it was the guy who was on probation. He was at a Walmart. He was picking up some things for his daughter. And of course, this guy's a Einstein. He's a meth user, because we find out during the whole thing that he does. But apparently, he went to Walmart and he has a loaded gun in his pants. And while he's doing the self checkout, the gun accidentally goes off, and it goes through his thigh. And of course, he runs home, and of course, police are called, and so they eventually locate him and all that.
And follow the blood trail.
And he's talking about, well, I don't know what happened. There was just like this explosion, and then I took off. I was here. It's like, okay, whatever. But what's so funny is he was arrested, so they were taking him. Like, you want to go to the hospital? No. So he starts going to jail, and they get almost there. He's like, can we go to the hospital? Because I'm in pain now. Okay. So they go to the hospital. Go up to the receptionist, and they mentioned that he's there because he accidentally shot himself and all that. And the receptionist had already heard about the incident. So she's like, okay. And then she starts laughing. She starts laughing because she knew exactly what was going on. But so yeah, I mean so he had to be taken back and they doctored up his leg and all that. And to add insult to injury, there was burn marks on his testicles. So they had to go back and clean all that. Meanwhile, the police have to take pictures because they got to document all this stuff. And he's like, and of course this guy's getting upset. Like, you know, it's like, you know what? You freaking deserve it. You're an idiot. There's some funny stories out there. Or at least I thought they were funny. I don't know.
I don't know that the police should take that attitude.
Huh?
And I understand why they said it, but you don't publicly do that, especially with cameras moving.
Would calling the guy an idiot?
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't. None of them called him an idiot. I was the one that's calling him an idiot.
Yeah, that was Tom calling him an idiot, not the cops.
Very few times that they do that, and that's something. I have noticed on a lot of these. They've been way over backwards, and they are way more patient than I ever would be with some of these people. It's just like, okay, this has gone a little too far, but it goes on a little bit longer. It's amazing.
Yeah, you don't have the temperament to be a cop.
No, I don't.
I don't think anybody. It's certainly not any of us talking, but I mean, I'd be surprised if very many people listening have the temperament to be a cop, because it takes an awful lot of patience.
Yeah, and that's easy for you to say.
Yeah, not really, no.
And something else that I had noticed, and someone actually an officer made a comment. It was one of the ones where they were caught shoplifting and all that, and of course they start talking about, okay, well, you're under arrest and all that. It was like, well, I can go back and pay for it. It's like, and an officer says, it's amazing that they always say that. You know, you're stealing something, and then once you get caught and all that, and it's like, oh, well, I can pay for it. It's like, well, why didn't you pay for it in the first place? Why are you?
Mm-hmm. Funny how that works.
Mm-hmm. Okay, on that note, we're going to take a quick break and get into this week's discussion. Welcome back. This year also marks the 25th anniversary of the first, I think there was, how many miniseries? There's 4 or 5, something like that, yeah, of Alan Ward and Kevin O'Neill's League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which featured Captain Nemo, Mina Murray, The Invisible Man, Jekyll and Hyde. Who else am I missing? Captain Nemo. Yeah, Alan Quartermain. So kind of an interesting little group of characters. So let's talk a little League.
I have not read this whole series. I've read bits and pieces just because it was Alan Moore, but I've seen the movies. But I haven't I haven't read a lot of the material. Which I heard the movie was nothing like the material, so.
That's a good start at describing the movie.
Well, wasn't there like a lawsuit and everything else over it because Alan Moore didn't like what they did, and I think it started the whole exit of him from ABC because correct me if I'm wrong here. My understanding was he wanted nothing, absolutely nothing to do with DC. So when he started working at ABC, what is that? All Time Comics or something like that?
America's Best.
America's Best Comics, yep. He told them that he would do it, but he wanted nothing to do with DC. He wanted no contact. Any kind of contact that DC wanted on this comic would have to go through them because he wanted nothing to do with them. So ABC, after dealing with Alan Moore, was pretty much like, we're done. We're done. You know, we can't be mediator between you guys. And I think DC was having a hard time with that label. So, you know, I think he continued for a little while. But during the meantime of this, they put a movie out and he didn't like the movie. And they made a quote of him saying something weird about the movie. And he told them, no, you're going to have to retract that and apologize because I never said that, you know. And they didn't. So Alan Moore was like, okay, we're going to wrap this shit up then. And he hurriedly finished the ending of this comic. So, which really wasn't a comic. Wasn't they all graphic novels? I mean, it's a comic, but didn't he release them as graphic novels?
No.
No? Okay.
It was a series of comics.
Okay. See, I think I had volume 1, which I thought was the first thing he put out on that.
He had his beef with DC because of Watchmen.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, I don't know a lot about America's Best Comics. When I was looking up...
short-lived series.
Was it? So DC's had a lot of sub-companies then, huh?
They had what again, please?
Like, I don't know what they're called, like Vertigo. How they have like... Yeah,
they've
had a lot of
different imprints.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this one, the America's Best, was set up by Jim Lee.
Mm-hmm.
So that Moore wouldn't have to deal with DC. But then Lee basically sold it to DC anyway, and so it all fell apart.
Yeah. Because then he was doing what he didn't want to do and dealing with DC.
Right.
And, you know, after the whole Watchmen thing, who can blame him? You know? I'm surprised he even dealt with a side company of DC, you know? He was pretty pissed about that. Which, you know, rightfully so, but he was pretty pissed about that.
I think it's safe to say that Alan Moore tends to go into everything he does looking for a reason to get pissed about it. So
yeah, he does.
You know, it's hard to tell. He seems to be difficult to work with, and it mostly seems to be intentional. But
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know the man. I never met him.
Well,
so.
You listen to interviews and stuff too, and he just doesn't seem like the kind of guy that I'd be like, hey, I want to sit down and have a conversation with him, you know?
Right. Agreed.
And any time his name is brought up, it's always drama, you know? I think there for a while he was going off on Twitter, and then he stopped, and then his daughter started, and it was like, man, DC, just give him Watchmen, please. You know? Shut him up. Just give it to him.
No, they're pretty sure they can outweight him.
Yeah, which is what I think at this point, even if they were going to, everything that's been said between the two, they're not. Never.
Yeah, they're content to just wait until he dies.
Yep.
They really
Which
are.
is why every year they put out a hardback copy of Watchmen so they can keep it in print.
Yep. Absolutely.
So they're in the long game.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at Alan Moore, they may not have to wait very much longer.
I don't know, man. He's looked like that for a long time. I'm just saying.
Like a wizard that's been left in a cave for a few years.
Somebody left their wizard out for too long, and yeah.
In the movie, I thought M's, or I guess he was the Phantom at that point. I really thought that was Alan Moore. It's like, that's going to be a trip if he takes that mask off and it's Alan Moore. Just the way the guy looked and everything. It wasn't.
Yeah, no kidding. No way they would have put up with Alan Moore on a set of anything. I mean, geez.
Yeah. And I know the movie was hated, but I didn't mind it. I was looking at the rating that it got on Rotten Tomatoes, and I think it's like 14%. And it's like, I mean, it wasn't great, but it wasn't that bad, you know.
Yeah, the movie was okay. It was the whole story is an interesting concept. It's a really interesting concept. And I admit I saw the movie first. I only just recently read Volume 1 of the comic.
Yeah.
And to be honest, yeah, when I saw the movie back not long after it came out, I kind of liked it. It was okay. It wasn't great. It was fine. Reading Volume 1 of the comics, which is allegedly what the movie is based on, I have never had my opinion about a movie turned so hard in my life. That movie should never have been made as it was.
Yeah.
And I don't say that lightly. That is not the same story. Those are not the same characters. And it's just I can sympathize. This is hard for me to say. I can sympathize with Alan Moore on how pissed he was about that movie.
Yeah.
Because holy shit, they just ignored his story. They just ignored his story. They pulled a few names out, and then they made their own movie. They wrote their own story, which was entirely different. It had nothing to do with it. They brought in characters that were completely made up and out of the blue. The main character in Volume 1 was given a bit part in the movie. And it's just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
I can't imagine why they thought that was going to go over well. I mean, it wasn't. If they'd waited 10 more years, the CGI would have been good enough to pull it off to a certain extent. But I mean, it was iffy at the time.
I thought some of it was pretty cool, though.
Some of it,
like
it
the
was
ship.
very cool. It just didn't look as good as it should have.
Yeah.
The ship was beautiful.
Beautiful.
And you should see the art for it in the book, because it's beautiful. It's an amazing design. That's the kind of that little things like that are the kind of things that they took from the book to put in the movie, and it's just appalling how little substance there is in it.
Well, I thought I had read they did it that way, though, because Alan Moore didn't want to work with them. So they used characters who weren't really, like, trademarked by him, that were, historical figures and that kind of thing, like, or not historical.
Well, fictional characters, yeah.
Common domain.
I know what you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of why they had to go that route with the stories, because he didn't want to work with them.
That's fine. Then they should never have put his title on it.
Yep.
Because
and
that was
only
copyrighted.
They put him in the movie. I rewatched the movie. He's like on a poster and stuff inside the movie. So it's like they still made nods to him, but still didn't give him credit.
Yeah, well, that's right. That's hardly the same as giving him credit, but
yeah. Yeah, but still, and you kind of wonder too. Did they put his name in there to kind of be like, nah?
You know, you don't want to think that the movie makers did that, but I mean, you can't. I'm not sure you could prove otherwise after the fact.
Yeah, because this was after Watchmen. You know,
Yeah.
I I I kind of see the movie as DC's way of going. We still own this. Whether you worked for this company or not, we own them too. We own this. You know, in my little petty mind, anyway. I would if I was them and I was having beef with. I would. We own it. You know, neener neener.
Yeah, it's kind of a we can do whatever we want with it type thing,
Yeah,
and
you know,
which
you
is a
can
damn
rant,
shame,
rave.
really.
Yeah, it is. It is. But from what I understand, it's been very ugly between them. So
Oh, for a long, long time,
long time. Yep.
because he will not let it go.
Mm-mm. And DC doing things like this, they won't either.
Right.
You know.
Clearly,
So
they have no reason to let it go because it's still making them some money, so why not?
yep. And all the money they paid out on legal fees,
Mm-hmm.
they're like, we're gonna get this back somehow, dude. You know. Watch, we're gonna put out a 50th anniversary hard platinum cover Watchmen this week. You know? So, yeah. So they can definitely be petty too.
Yep. But at the risk of being controversial, the book.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, my entire experience with this is volume 1.
I think that's what I read too.
Which I picked up in a free comic book day sale a couple of years ago. And I read it recently, and I'm like, this is a really cool story. I mean, there's some questionable shit in there. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
How they what they find the Invisible Man doing when they find him is wow. That's what that is. That is wow.
Yeah. Which they left out of the movie.
Strangely enough, they left that out of the movie. That's a point where I don't blame them for changing that part of the story. But they also couldn't license the actual original Invisible Man either, so
yeah,
they had to change. They had a really good excuse to change the character up. So good on them for that. But doesn't excuse what they did to Mina. But the book, yeah, I mean, I think it's a really cool idea. I mean, it's a group of fictional characters. It's all set in Victorian times.
1898.
Yeah. The idea, I found it interesting that in Volume 1, I mean, I can't speak to what they did after that, but with Mina, they were real careful to not. She was real careful to not hint at why she was there, at whatever abilities or whatever that she had that made her good for the job.
Yeah.
Because of course we all know who Mina is. They even mentioned specifically in the story that she was recently divorced from a man named Harker.
Who worked with Helsing, didn't he?
Straight out of Dracula.
Yeah.
Yeah, the deal is she's a vampire. She does a real good job of hiding it in Volume 1. And it's the only explanation for how she could have any control over Hyde. But so she is right off the bat a really interesting character. How they handled Quartermain, I thought was also. I mean, it's controversial, but not so much so that it's not realistic. So it's a nice. I think it's a fun way of handling him. And of course you get Jekyll and Hyde. That's an easy one. I thought they did it well. I thought he did it well, but it's still an easy one. And yeah, the Invisible Man. in a girls' school, knocking girls up. That's, yeah, wow.
Yeah.
It at least sets up the fact that he's a right bastard. I will give him that. But yeah, I mean, and the idea, and Nemo, of course, you can't leave out the aging Captain Nemo. And honestly, the Nautilus is its own character in its own right. And what do you do for a bad guy for that? I mean, he was actually smart enough to bring in two of them. So there you go. But yeah, I am actually curious to find the second volume, just to see what they're going to do for an encore, you know?
See, I was told I wouldn't like the second volume because it gets a little rapey.
More rapey than the first?
Right.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
So, yeah.
I mean, you read enough Alan Moore stuff, and
that's what I
there's
was about to
rapey
say.
stuff all over it. So
he's very gritty and almost Garth Ennis style.
I have always been of the impression, from what I've read of his stuff, which is quite a bit, he's going into everything he writes trying to offend someone.
Yeah.
And
which
rape is an easy way to do that. So I mean, it's usually the less creative works where he does that. So there's that. But it's when he's doing it in other more interesting ways that it gets good and bad.
Because didn't he do some religious books too that didn't hit over too well?
Oh yeah, I believe he did.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think he's like the Howard Stern of comic books. Or old Howard Stern, not the new one.
Right. I mean, he's somewhere.
And he had a set,
Somewhere between Howard Stern and Aleister Crowley.
Yeah.
I think he just basically thinks of himself as the new Aleister Crowley, and well,
Yeah,
nobody asked for that. That's for sure.
I'm not saying that he's not talented, because he is.
He is, absolutely.
He's just different style, totally different style. I think out of all the stuff that he's wrote, the one thing that sticks out to me that I absolutely love the most is The Killing Joke. But even that right there is typical of Alan Moore. It was dark, it was gritty, it was rapey.
He took the Joker and he went so far out of bounds with it. He went as far out of bounds with it as he could.
Yep.
And
it was good.
It's good, but it's way out of bounds, and that's where he likes to play.
Yeah.
And so if you're not ready for that, if you're not prepared for it to be that way every single time he writes something, then Alan Moore may not be the writer for you.
Yeah.
And Alan Moore may not be the writer for a lot of people. And that's okay. That's fine.
Yep.
I'm not here to tell anybody to read terrible rapey stuff.
Right.
Don't do that if that's not what you want to read. That's fine. But
well, and he also did like Swamp Thing and stuff, which wasn't real rapey, dark and gritty, but not rapey.
Right. Yeah. I think that's as much where he's figuring out the dark and gritty thing and then starting to push it.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets much past that as when he starts really coloring outside the lines in that regard.
Yep.
But yeah.
But another, I don't want it to be taken wrong. He's another one that to me reminds me of Grant Morrison in the way that he writes. A lot of times he writes that you know what he's talking about, so he doesn't feel like explaining it sometimes. So sometimes it, comes off a little, I guess pretentious is the word, or I don't know.
Pretentious is probably a good word for it.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I think they both have that. I think Moore takes it farther than Morrison does, for sure. But yeah, I've read enough Morrison to know to have seen that a little bit.
Yeah. Which, like I said, sometimes that's cool because sometimes you do know what he's talking about. Other times you're Googling Wikipedia and going, what?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's great that we have tools like that now that we can
Yeah.
Google in Wikipedia and figure stuff out. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Our
Now.
capacity for learning has grown exponentially.
Yeah.
What we've chosen to do with that, we are not going to talk about on the show. But as I'm talking about as a society, not us specifically. We use that shit all the time.
Yeah. Like I said, he definitely does have some good stuff out there for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and this, in my opinion, this volume 1 is good.
Mm-hmm.
It is well written. It's an interesting story. It pulls some interesting fictional characters together and in a time frame and does some fun stuff with them. That's my opinion.
Yeah. I think it's probably some of his lesser known work, though.
Maybe. Whether that's intentional or not, we could probably start arguing again, but we shouldn't.
Please.
Mm-hmm. But it's also part of that. I think is it's actually in terms of how controversial his stuff is. It's on the lesser side of that too.
Yeah.
It's controversial. Don't get me wrong, but less so than some of his other stuff.
And we said this was what anniversary of this?
25th.
25th.
So this came out in '99.
Okay.
Les, your thoughts?
I remember picking these up when they came out, and it was almost one of those that I couldn't wait for the next episode. I thought it was superbly done. I think it had me at the start. I did not waver in it. I just thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it's survived the passage of time. It is a book that can be read again and again, which I thoroughly like. That's to me, that's the sign of a really good read. I'm going to say I'm sorry, but I can't see that Alan Moore was taken advantage of. To me, Alan Moore took advantage of anybody and everybody around him. And I know I'll probably get flack for that, but
hell, I agree with you, man.
I mean, you watch his interviews, and yeah.
I remember him at a con where he was just taking an attitude of up yours and trying to walk away from people and things. To me, that wasn't proper, but nobody was holding him accountable for it either. All in all, I thought it was a really good story. It brought about other versions, other storylines that had fictional characters brought together. And some of those were really good too. This was not the first time that that concept had been used was effective. And that, to me, that was a big part of it. Although you may have problems with some of the ideas and things, it was still something that made you think. And to me, that's one of the big things right there is, did it make you scratch your head and go, huh? Some, unfortunately, now do not do that or even come close to it. But to me, it's pretty much there to make me want to come back for more. And there were 3 more series or something. So I thought, well, that's a good selling point. All in all, loved it.
Cool.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I agree. I thought it was an interesting concept. I would never have thought of putting these characters together to work together as a team. That's something I would never would have thought of. And my knowledge of some of these characters kind of, some of them I don't really know that much, and then others I know more. Like Quartermain, I mean, I've not read any of the story, so I don't really know that much about him and all that. But I knew of him. I did enjoy the story. It was a really good story, and I only read volume 1. In regards to the movie, I liked it, but I knew, it was, it's nowhere near comparable to the source material, and the fact that the filmmakers felt that we got to attract American moviegoers by bringing in Tom Sawyer and Dorian Gray. Like, how many people knew who Dorian Gray was? But okay. Tom Sawyer, I get, but making him a government agent, okay. It was almost like they just threw anything against the wall and see what would stick. It seemed like that was kind of the attitude.
I have a theory about that.
Okay, what's your theory?
I think they were extraordinarily lucky to land Sean Connery. And so they knew they needed to make him the star. He was the star. He needed to be the star, which is why they wrote Mina out and gave him a protege.
Yeah.
The fact that it was Tom Sawyer they were just looking for a name to stick in there.
Right.
But
You're right.
The deal is they were really, really lucky to land Sean Connery for his final movie role.
Yeah.
And they needed to capitalize on that 100%. And so they rewrote the story so that Quartermain was the star and was going to pass his legacy on to someone else. I mean, it didn't matter who it was. They chose a pretty young man to do it to instead of Mina, but whatever. I don't remember the name of the guy who played Tom Sawyer. They must have had a contract with him. They must have had something with him too, but
yeah,
they thought they were going to build a franchise off of the young guy. That's my theory.
I could see that. I can definitely see that. And you talk about them being lucky to get Connery. I think Connery was kind of lucky too, because he had. I had read this somewhere in the past that, and honestly, I don't see I don't see it in either cases, but he was offered Lawrence Fishburne's role in The Matrix, and he turned that down. He said it didn't make sense to him. And he also did the same thing to I believe he turned down Gandalf.
Gandalf, I've heard that.
Because he didn't understand that either. I'm like, So when this came along, I guess he figured he needed to take it.
They couldn't stick him in a future movie. They couldn't stick him in a fantasy movie. So let's just make up a historical fiction thing for him.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, as a person, he was a little bit stuck in the past anyway. But
yeah, true.
That's potentially a controversial statement on my part. But whatever.
Tom Sawyer was played by Shane West. I'm not recognizing a lot of his movies, but he did play Bane in Gotham.
Interesting. Bane wear a mask in Gotham? I never saw it.
I think he did.
Okay.
In Gotham, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, some of the other things I'm not really...
I remember the name once you said it, but I don't remember anything else he's done.
Did Dracula 2000?
Oh yeah, he did.
Did he?
Who
was he in that?
JT in that.
He was working with Christopher Plummer. He was one of the good guys, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
He did one episode of Buffy and one episode of Sliders. One episode of Boy Meets World. So it looks like a lot of one-off stuff. Nothing real.
Never really found his niche.
Yeah, his claim to fame is League.
Well, here it says he was also in Once and Again, which was a TV series, and he was in 55 episodes. So maybe that was his... But that was before League.
That's probably what landed him League then, huh?
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
He did it from 99 to 2002, and then League was in 2003. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Yep. Little of this, little of that.
Like I said, I think they were hoping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it didn't really work out.
Yeah, they were hoping for a franchise.
Yep.
And I don't really see a niche that he really fell into either, so.
When your head writer decides they don't want to work with you, it's kind of difficult to try to get that franchise up and running.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like that could be a problem, huh?
Mm-hmm. Little one. So I'm curious if he approved of V is for Vendetta movie.
I don't remember.
Oh, we didn't research that one.
Everybody starts typing on the keyboard.
That one's fun for. I mean, I don't know that it launched Natalie Portman, but it was an early role.
Yeah.
I think she had already. She was already pretty much a star by then, but
yeah.
It also gave us Hugo Weaving, which is always a welcome thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is no. He did not like it.
I'm shocked. Shocked, I tell you.
They said he distanced himself because they changed it so much.
It's another one I'm ashamed to say I haven't read, so maybe I'll track that down now.
Yeah, I haven't read that
I think I bought. They have like a set where you get the mask, the book, and there's something else that came with it. I think I have like that set.
Just a bunch of movie merchandising. That's what that is.
Pretty much.
Hey, if that's what gets comics into people's hands, fine. I'm good with that.
See, I didn't see the movie when it first came out. I think I went and saw the movie after the comic book. Or not see it, but I watched it after. Yeah, B.
Yeah. Like I said, I've seen the movie. I haven't read the comic. Half afraid to now after my experience here with League.
Right.
All it did was make me hate the movie more.
Well, maybe there's a little bit of, right in his rant then,
Well, I mean, they would serve to prove that point, which is honestly what I'm scared to do, but I don't know. I remember liking V for Vendetta a lot more than I liked League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, the movie.
Yeah, the movie, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, we're saying a lot of stuff about it, but it's an important comic.
Yep.
I think with League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, back on that. I think it's important. I think it's good. It's a really good story. It's a really interesting concept, an interesting set of characters.
Well worth the time.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And on that note, we are going to take a quick break and be back with Geek News for You. And we're back, and it's time for Geek News for You. In this segment, we bring a couple of news items to the table for discussion. And for this week, it is Liz and myself. And Liz, would you go first, please?
Yes. All right. I am going to talk about the freebie. I didn't know that it wasn't originally on Amazon. So
Yeah, no, it was on it. It was a startup on its own, I believe.
Is it a startup on its own?
Yeah, Amazon bought it.
I ran across them on Amazon. I was watching a show called Jury Duty, which was apparently it was Freebie's original, but was it James Marsden from Westworld? That was when I was in that whole Western kick, and it was like a reality kind of show that they did, and I thought, well, this is kind of neat. So that first brought me to their attention, but they do like Judy Justice. She left Judge Judy on Fox to come over to this and everything else. Well, now they're talking about shutting it down, and they're moving it to Amazon, or is Amazon shutting it down?
Well, I think Amazon owns it now, so they're probably just absorbing it finally, not letting it be its own thing.
But it looks like it's going to stay ad supported for non-Prime. And here's another thing I didn't know till I read this article. I didn't know if you weren't a Prime member, you could still watch Prime Video. I guess they have like ad-supported movies and stuff too.
Yeah, and I think that might be a recent thing.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be part of that. So, pretty cool. I think Amazon, I wish that they would bundle the way that the other big streaming services do. Now, you can get the streaming services as a channel on Amazon, but you're never going to get the discount as if you go directly to like Max or Disney Plus or whatever. So I think if they caught up with the times a little bit and started bundling these the way that the others do, that they would have a better service, honestly. It is nice.
I think of this as being like the VHS beta wars back in the day.
Yeah.
It's like two different formats, and we're just sort of waiting to see which one becomes the standard.
Well, and if you also notice at the beginning of cutting the cord, you had all these little places. You had Freevee, you had Crackle, you had Netflix, so you had all these little ones. Well, then now the big guys have jumped into the ring because they're like, wait a minute, you left us on cable, Disney. We want to do this too. We want to play, and they started snatching up all these little services. That's why we now have Disney, and I think it's Disney, Hulu, Discovery, and ESPN all on one channel, or one package now. So it's nice that Amazon's not just looking to bring in like another Peacock, but an actual free service. It looks like it still does have. It will have ads in them.
Sure, they're going to do that because otherwise they don't make any money off of it.
Right. I'm curious if no, they said it right here. There will be no change to the content available for Prime members, and a vast offering of free streaming content will still be accessible for non-Prime members. So,
is there a time frame for this? Do they say when it's going to happen?
I don't.
There may not be. I'm just curious.
I don't see it.
Okay.
I don't see a date that they're planning on doing this. Like I said, I've already seen it over there, which I probably wouldn't have heard of it. Honestly, I'm going to sound such a bitch saying this. I probably wouldn't have watched it if it wasn't on Amazon, because Freevee just sounds like a Tubi to me, where I'd have to watch commercials, to where I'd stick with the bigger streaming guys where I didn't have to. Not that I'm a commercial snob, but
You're
I have
total
ADD.
commercial snob. What are you talking about?
I mean, I get distracted very easily.
Right.
And
You have a reason for it, for sure.
But yeah, I mean that's pretty cool. So I'm glad they're thinking about free options instead of just another. Ooh, we can add this and make people pay an extra $2 a month. So, but it also says that the freebie went from between 2020 and 2022 had over 65 million subscribers. That's pretty. I mean,
Freevee had that many?
Freevee
That
did.
seems like a lot.
Yep, they had an active user base of 65 million.
And that's what Amazon's open to absorb right there.
Right. Yeah. Well, you guys were telling me, I think it was last week, about Tubi being like one of the number one streaming services, and it's like, wow,
Yeah,
that's
it's like top 5, something like that.
Yeah. So it's good to see what I call the little guys making it. They get to swim in that pond before they're ate by the shark. Yeah. But it sounds like pretty much Amazon's going to be like, you do your thing, So that's pretty cool.
Good, if that's the case. I mean, and honestly, if you can still access the stuff for free, then that's kind of a win.
That is, yeah.
It's at least not a total loss.
And I know a few months back, I had to pay, I think on my Prime Video, I pay an extra $2 a month now, because if not, they kind of went to an ad-based service. Mm-hmm. So maybe that also kind of fits in line with their new model that they're doing. But yeah. But I don't think I watched commercials on Jury Duty. So I think for Prime members, you're going to stay the same. You still won't have commercials because you're paying for it. But for Freevee, you just now have to log into a new place to watch it, which will be over on Amazon Prime. That's pretty cool. And if you haven't seen Jury Duty, it looks like that's like their main breakout title on Freevee. If you haven't seen it, it is hilarious because, like I said, the guy in the show has no idea that any of this is set up. So he really thinks that he got selected for a jury and all this crazy shit is happening because they're sequestered and, James Marston is actually himself, So it's hilarious. So if you haven't seen that, definitely go on over to Amazon and watch that.
That's got to be hard to pull off too. I mean, all those people. I mean, that's an always on gig right there.
Always,
Yeah.
24/7. You know, because
Yeah,
they were sequestered. Yeah.
That's a lot of improv to ask for.
And then there's like one part on there where they all get to do like a birthday party. Now it's only the jury duty because, you know, you can't talk to outside people or anything. But they're like, yeah, we'll let you go to a park with a cake. Well, James Marsden comes in and like totally smashes the cake and is like yelling and screaming at everybody. Well, when he leaves the set, he's like, oh my God, I feel like such a dick. This guy is going to hate me and think that I really like this. So, you know, which after it was all wrapped up, he like bought the guy something. He's like, I'm so sorry. You know, you must really think I'm a jackass.
Wow.
But, yeah. He said it's pretty good.
Is this like Joe Schmo?
Sounds kind of like it, yeah.
I don't know if I've seen Joe Schmo.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where they have one person and it's picked on.
Yeah.
Not literally, but he isn't in on all the things that the actors are doing. He just thinks that he's on a game show.
Yeah. See, I think with jury duty, they explained it that they were filming to show people like the behind the scenes of what it's like to be on jury duty. So he didn't really think anything about the cameras being there either, you know.
Okay.
But yeah, and I didn't know until like a couple of episodes into it that everybody else was in on it. That, you know, they knew and were acting that he was the only one who just didn't know.
Yikes.
Those can be fun. Those are fun to watch because
They are.
some of the people don't understand what's going on.
Mm-mm. And then when things just happen, he's like, man, this is crazy. I never would have thought this would have happened in my life, you know. I think some of it, though, that's when I would have been going, okay, what's going on here? You know,
Yeah.
this isn't right.
Okay. For my news item, Deadline is reporting that Warner Brothers has made a deal to make a new version of Forbidden Planet.
Ah,
Was that the one that Will Shatner did?
no.
No.
It was Leslie Nielsen.
Leslie Nielsen.
We watched it. We covered that not long ago, a
Mhm.
few months ago.
Yeah.
Well, we also did a casting call for a reboot.
Oh yeah, that's how we covered it. That's right.
It will be produced by Emma Watts, and it'll be written by Brian K. Vaughan.
Really
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
interesting.
There has been
More about cast.
no. Apparently, James Cameron at one time was considering doing a remake, but there was issues regarding the rights. But apparently, that's all been cleared up, or Warner Brothers was able to take care of that. I mean, that's pretty much all they show is just. The original version was loosely based on Shakespeare's The Tempest. Came out in 1956. Starred Leslie Nielsen, Anne Francis, Walter Pidgeon, Warren Stevens, Richard Anderson. And it's the story's about a crew that discovers the remains of a previous ship and found two survivors and tried to find out what was going on, and They Robbie the Robot was in it. It'd be interesting to see what they do with the modern version of Robbie.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I saw this. I was like, oh, I don't know about this.
I don't either.
I mean, Brian K. Vaughan may change my mind, but
Potentially.
if you've not seen Forbidden Planet, highly recommend it.
Yeah, it's a must-watch movie.
I mean, this came out at a time when sci-fi films were not highly regarded because they were done on the cheap and all that kind of thing. And this is certainly not. This is a great
big
A
budget.
film.
Yeah, this is a big budget movie for the time, and that didn't happen with sci-fi much.
No.
I mean, you count on one hand the number of movies in the 50s that were big budget sci-fi.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that you mentioned James Cameron in this. I mean, that he was tied to it at one point, but isn't now. My deal with Cameron and this movie would be I would be interested in seeing what he could do with it with a budget of $20 million and no more.
Yeah.
I would like to see James Cameron make a low budget movie these days. That's what I want to see. Partly it's just a perverse thing in my mind, but
I don't know if he can.
I know he could. I mean, he worked with Corman, for crying out loud. He got his start with Corman, so I know he could do it. But he hasn't had to do it in so long that it would be interesting to see him try.
Yeah.
He hadn't had to since
basically since he made Aliens. I mean, after that, the sky was the limit for him.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched The Abyss, man. I'm telling you.
Oh yeah.
You can. That movie was. It was interesting in that it was good and bad at the same time.
Yeah.
But anyway. And his movies kind of have always been that way ever since. Unnecessarily long, with an interesting premise, but not always enough substance. Anyway, didn't really mean to go off on Cameron on that, but.
And the William Shatner thing I was thinking of is the unexplained that he does. Have y'all seen any of that?
Not a bit of it, no.
Okay.
But thanks for asking.
Yeah. It's not like a. Yeah. They're like one episodes of like mysteries of unexplained things that happen.
So it's like a documentary thing or something?
Kind of, yeah.
Or
that's what they call it, is an investigative docuseries.
Okay.
I think it just started season 7 last month.
That guy is still working blows my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why? He doesn't have to. I mean, I commend him for his energy and wanting to do stuff like that, but man.
Yeah. Well, he's just the voice.
Well, that still takes some effort.
Right.
He's still in his 90s. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
For sure.
Good on him.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any special shout-outs or mentions this week?
Well, real quick, this episode drops, I mean, to say it drops next Sunday is kind of dumb, but next Sunday is the Sunday before American Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yep, definitely.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Most wonderful time of the year.
Debatable.
Most fattening time of the year, maybe. But that's okay.
Yep.
I like to eat.
chicken.
Mm-hmm.
Turkey and football.
Hell
There you
yeah.
Some cases, turkeys play football.
Mm.
The Cowboys will definitely be playing, so
Oh,
definitely.
man.
Well, that's debatable,
I
but
was just saying, it was playing in quotation marks
Maybe, possibly.
with themselves, maybe.
Wow.
hello.
There's a mental picture I didn't want. Pretty sure Fox Sports doesn't want it either, but anyway.
Right.
Okay, we'll move on to our regular shout-outs. First of all, I want to thank Pop Goes the Culture for allowing us to be part of their great little podcast network. Recommend that you check them out. There'll be a link in the show notes. We also want you to check out the fine men and women who been kind enough to spread the word of the fellowship on Twitter/X by retweeting our links, and that is the people of Podern Family. And the best way to check them out is do a search, #Podern Family, and scroll through the list, and whatever catches your eye, by all means, click on that link and download the episode, and we hope you have a great time listening to them. Want to thank Manny the Martyr for supplying the music to the podcast. In our show notes, there will be a link where you can check out some of their other music. And finally, you, dear listener, thank you for downloading and listening to today's episode. We value your feedback. Any comments, questions, suggestions, complaints, observations, what have you, please send them our way. Our email address is email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, or you can go to the website, go to the About Us page, and there's a contact form that you can fill out there. We do have a Discord that you can join. There's an open invitation on our homepage. Discord's free to sign up, and the apps are free in the app stores. We post news items, stuff for discussion, stuff to laugh at, all that kind of stuff. We'll have fun activities on there. And there is a section for feedback, so you can post your thoughts there, and we'll all read those. Social media, we're on Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks. On Instagram, Twitter, and now Blue Sky, we are at Fellowship Geeks. If you like to follow our personal Twitter accounts, Mike can be found at Mikey Geek. Liz can be found at LN_geek. Les may or may not be found at Fake Les Webster. And I could be found at TomTC Geek. And from wherever you download our episodes, if you'd be so kind as to rate and review the show, it would be greatly appreciated. Anything else before we say goodbye?
Just thanks, everybody.
Appreciate you listening.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We appreciate the support as always. Until next time, geek on, my friends.
We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,